and welcome to Cuick Talk, the show where compliance gets decoded. Each month, we break down the CyberAB Town Hall into plain English so companies can actually understand what it all means. Today, I am joined by our subject matter expert, Kathryn Daly. Hello, Kathryn.
Hello.
And joining us today for the first time to bring a new perspective to the space, Adam Wentz. Hello, Adam.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today.
So today we're covering the March Town Hall, and this is the moment where CMMC is showing up in real contracts. So let's get into it. Kathryn, from this Cyber Town Hall, what was the biggest takeaway this month?
So the biggest takeaway is what you just mentioned. CMMC is now in contracts. It's not theoretical. Companies are required to prove compliance to win work. And contracting officers are enforcing the CMMC requirements that are being put into solicitations. Contractors are required to be compliant with whatever CMMC level is in the solicitation upon contract award. When I looked in SAM this morning, there was 103 active opportunities with CMMC mentioned.
So you're saying we're basically shifting from the planning phase to the execution phase.
Yeah, we're definitely in execution.
So, every town hall, they love to show us the data about the current ecosystem. And it's actually one of my favorite parts because I'm a numbers guy. Kathryn, what can you tell us about the ecosystem right now based on the town hall?
So as of the town hall last week, there was 1,074 level 2 certifications. And so as far as the ecosystem, there are now 103 C3PAOs. So those are the organizations that are employing the assessment teams. And that's up 5% from last month. There are 484 LCCAs, which are lead assessors. And that's a 7% increase since last month. And there are 759 CCAs, which is a 1% increase. We're seeing the slowest increase in the CCAs because the tier 3 background checks are taking a pretty long time to complete. From what I understand, you're looking at 12 plus months to get your tier 3 returned.
Yes, I just had my CCP tier 3 returned, and that took months. I think like 6 or 7, and that was back in like November when I actually took the exam. And I just got a nice new badge from my SACA saying, hey, here's your new CCP to brag about to everyone on LinkedIn. I think it's Credly is what it's called. So now SACA has actually taken over that entire exam. So I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out in the future.
Well, so there's been a lot of talk on LinkedIn about ISACA taking over the CAICO for the CMMC exams. They did change their pricing and credentialing system, and the exams now are in line with how much their exams cost. And so the exams themselves are more expensive, but the renewal fees are much less. So if you look at the cost over time, it's actually cheaper with ISACA than it was with CAICO. ISACA is putting out new exam content. So the exams will finally align with the current cap. They're putting the exam content out in Q4, and the updated exam should be ready January of 2027. And it's actually going to use 80171 Rev 3 versus Rev 2. So that should be a really good opportunity for catching up the education that has been lacking.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we finally have a date on when that exam may be coming out, because there's so many people right now just not taking their CCP because they know it's on the old cap and they're waiting for the new one to drop.
Correct. And since the DoD is still assessing Rev 2, but they're teaching Rev 3 in the updated content, they're going to have a bridge course that backwards trains assessors to Rev 2 to ensure that assessors can assess both of them.
So, Adam, I want to bring you into this because you're new to the whole CMMC space. When you watched this town hall, what was it that stood out to you?
So It sounded like CMMC was going to be live in contracts now. And one question that I had was, does that mean that like companies are going to be losing deals or have the potential to lose contracts they might not have had to lose in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are waiting until you submit a proposal to start getting compliant with CMMC, some of these contracts are being turned around in 3, 4, 5 months. And if you're required to have a third-party assessment, you're not going to have enough time in those 3, 4, 5 months to get prepared and get on a C3PAO's calendar. So you really need to start getting prepared before it's required for a contract that you want to win.
Kat, at the time of this recording, how long are you seeing C3PAOs schedule their assessments out?
So some of them are scheduling out in a couple of months. Some of them are booked for the rest of the year already.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, speaking of contracts, though, what are we now seeing in our contracts?
The contracts are having whatever CMMC level is required by that contracting officer. It could be level 1 if you don't actually have CUI and you just have federal contract information. If you have CUI, it's going to be more than likely level 2. You can have a self-assessment option or a third-party assessor option. It's up to the contracting officer and what's in the solicitation as to which level you're required for level 2. Some other contracts are requiring level 3, which is a DIBCAC assessment.
So it sounds like these companies need to find out what level they are probably pretty quickly.
Yeah, and so it will be in the solicitation, but as I said, waiting for the solicitation to come out means you're probably already behind the ball if you are not already very far into the preparation for a CMMC assessment. So looking at contracts and what's being asked and trying to make a best guess is probably a good plan. The safer plan is to assume that you're going to need a third-party assessment and go ahead and get it out of the way sooner rather than later. But we are seeing a lot of companies that want to do a self-assessment and just wait and see if they're required to do a third-party assessment.
So, Kat, the word flow down was thrown out a lot during this town hall, and flow down is very important in the CMMC world. But, like, what is flow down? What does it all mean?
Flow down is where the primes win the contract, and the contract is what has the CMMC requirements. The primes are required to flow those contract clauses down to their supply chain. So the subs are still required to comply with whatever is in the contract, and it is the prime's responsibility to ensure that their subs and vendors, suppliers, etc., are all in compliance with the data that they will be or could be receiving. We're seeing some small organizations that don't actually expect to receive CUI being required to do a self-assessment just in case they inadvertently receive CUI or things change within the contract and they do end up needing CUI to ensure that they are prepared to receive it.
So subcontractors are going to need to have some level of compliance as well with whatever follows with the contract, not just the prime.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is primes driving adoption faster than the government. So primes don't want to lose work because their subs aren't ready to receive CUI. So they are preemptively requiring their subs to be compliant with at least a self-assessment of the level 2 controls to ensure that when they go and bid work that they have a supply chain that can back up their awards.
So, Kathryn, why do companies still not know if they have CUI?
So the government hasn't been doing a great job of marking CUI. Some of them are overmarking, and which is marking documents that are not CUI as CUI. Then there's undermarking, which is the opposite. And so it's creating a lot of confusion. We've had several clients who have gotten emails marked as CUI into their corporate email. And I always tell them, take a deep breath, reach out to the person who sent it, verify that that wasn't overmarked, verify that that actually is CUI. Unfortunately, if it is CUI, now you've got an incident. But also having the prime ask the contracting officer for the security classification guide for the contract should give you a good idea of what data within that contract is going to be considered CUI.
So it sounds like both the companies and the government are struggling with knowing the rules and applying them properly.
Yeah, there was a DoD audit out that audited the DoD's effectiveness and accuracy with marking, and the DoD wasn't doing a great job at appropriately marking what is and is not CUI. So there's definitely a learning opportunity there.
So, Kat, just to kind of bring it all home, after listening to this town hall, what should companies do like right now?
So what companies should be doing is getting ready, and at a very minimum, getting a self-assessment done, getting their self-assessment in SPRS. Last month, we talked about how they changed the requirements for entering into SPRS, and simply entering a score is no longer required. But the self-assessment and testing to the fact that you have met all of the controls is definitely a requirement. And even if you don't have a contract now requiring it, going ahead and getting that self-assessment done is going to be incredibly valuable for your contracts in the future.
So with all that, I want to say thank you so much, Kathryn, for joining the show again. Adam, thank you so much for being a newcomer on the show. And for everyone else out there, thank you for helping decode compliance with us on another episode of Cuick Talk. Until next time, stay curious, stay compliant.
Cuick Talk, where compliance gets decoded.